Hello and welcome back to this course. So let's start learning by doing some simple projects. So the first project, the requirement is calculate average rating of comedy movies per year between 1910 and 2000. So in any project, so the first step is to understand the requirement. So this is our requirement. So we need to find the average rating of comedy movies and between this year. So this is the logic we need to implement. And what are the components that we are using? I will get you introduce these three components: Azure Data Lake Storage, Azure Data Factory, and Azure SQL. So now we got an idea what is the requirement. So the next step is to draw an architecture diagram. So you can use a PowerPoint, Word, or even a piece of paper and pen. Just draw the diagram and understand the logical flow. So this is the architecture diagram for our project, and we are using ADLS as our input source. Our data will be coming to this ADLS, and we use Azure Data Factory for transformation. Okay, so transformation in the sense like filtering and finding out the average. So that we use Azure Data Factory's data flow capability. So there is a feature called data flow. So we can use that for this particular requirement. And finally, our output or the destination is Azure SQL, and we will be storing our process data in one of the tables in Azure SQL. So this is our flow, and we call this as a data pipeline. So data pipeline is nothing but the series of flow from input to the final processing layer. And this flow can be orchestrated by using Azure Data Factory. So don't confuse by looking at these two Azure Data Factories here, but technically we are using this single Azure Data Factory, and we are leveraging the different features of the same Azure Data Factory resource. I hope you understood the requirement and the logical data flow. So next we will move to the implementation of each resource and start doing this pipeline. Hello and welcome back. Let's get started by deploying resources. The first step, we are going to create a resource group. Open the browser and type this URL portal.azure.com. If you don't have an Azure ID, so you can register for it, and first you will get some free credit. So I already have an account. I'm using that here. Type my ID and then password. Yes. So this is how our Azure portal looks like. We are going to create our resources from here. So you can see some of the favorite icons on the left hand side, and on the dashboard, and there is a search menu. So you can create a resource group either by hitting the resource group, so which I already used several times and it's displaying under favorite. Otherwise you can type resource groups here and choose this icon, or else if you have this icon here, you can click here. You will be getting the same page. So here we are going to create a resource group. So resource group is a container or folder kind of structure under which we are keeping all our resources. So we can manage our resources easily if we deploy or keep our resources under the resource group. So I'm click this option by create resource group. So first up, you have to choose the subscription, but here I have only one subscription, but in your case, if you are working in an enterprise level, there may be multiple subscriptions. Choose appropriate subscription and type your resource group name. So This is my resource group name, and choose the location. Better choose the location which is closer to your region. So I'm just selecting Australia East. Or if you have so there are a lot of locations available, so you can choose anything from this list. Okay. And tag is something like we are adding to describe this resource better. So you can create like honor or purpose, the projects, etc. Again, it's an optional entry. You can leave it for this time. And review. So this will do certain basic validation, and if validation passed, we can go ahead and create our resource group. So that's it. Our resource group has deployed. You can select this and see this properties like which subscription it belongs to, subscription ID, and if you have tags, that also will be there. And left side, there are a lot of settings and you can go over it. But for our deployment, this is more than enough, and we will be placing all our resources under this resource group. Hello and welcome back. Now let's start deploying Azure Data Lake storage that we are using to store our input data. So first, you can go to your resource group, whatever the resource group you have created. Search resource group and select appropriate resource group. So we can create the resources under here. So there are different options to create a resource. Either you can use this option to create the resource, or from here or here also. So I'm just creating, and here search the resource name. So let's just use storage account. Okay, choose the storage account and plan. So there is, by default it's a storage account, then create. So now we will be getting a page where we need to fill our values. So first is the resource subscription name. So choose appropriate subscription, and then the resource group. So this is the resource group that we created, and storage account name. So you need to give some name. So this is something like a globally unique name. Okay, if you just use the project, say it's saying like the project is already taken. So project 01, then some random number I'm just using. Okay, if I'm not getting any warnings like it's already in use or already used, so we need to change that. And choose the location. So I'm using the same location, Australia East here also. Okay, so this is the location or region where our storage account will be get deployed. And performance tier, we have standard and premium. So the premium is where you need very low latency requirement, but in our demo case, the standard is more than enough. Then the next is the redundancy. So there are various redundancy options like global redundant, local redundant, zone redundant, and geo-zone redundant. So we need a local redundant, which is the minimal redundancy option, and the more redundancy option we choose, again the pricing also vary. So we need the base minimal one, which is LRS, locally redundant storage. Then we'll go to the next advanced settings. So choose everything default, and here so we can choose this option. If you choose enable hierarchical namespace, so we need to choose this for creating ADLS. Okay, if you are not leaving, not selecting this option, by default it will create a normal storage account or normal blob storage. So if you just want to convert into ADLS, just use this and enable hierarchical namespace. So this is the option you need to choose. Next is the networking. So again, choose the default one, enable public access. So if you need more secure access, you can choose the other options. Maybe I'll explain that later. But for this demo, we just choose enable public access, and routing also choose the default. Data protection also we are not the changing any default settings. And then coming to the encryption, so we have encryption option, so choosing the default, that is also we are choosing the default Microsoft managed key we are using. And the tag, as I said, it's an optional settings. You can add if you would like to add certain tags, or else you can leave it. And finally, review and create. So the review phase, Azure will do some basic validation, and if the validation is passed, so we can go ahead and create this storage account. So this will take some time, maybe within less than 1 minute maximum. So you can see the deployment status here. So this is saying like the deployment is in progress, and we can just refresh to get the latest status. You can see this is the resource name, and this is a status, and the deployment is in progress. Right, now we got a message like the deployment has succeeded, and we can go to that resource. So from here we can go to that resource, and this is the resource that is storage account we have created. And you can choose this option, data lake storage, and under that, so we can create our directories, or which we call as container. So we can create separate containers for storing our input. Maybe if you need a separate container for output, that is also we can create. And the storage account has a lot of settings, access keys, shared access, signature. So those things also we will check later, but for this demo we just need a plain storage account created. Hello and welcome back. Now let's start deploying Azure Data Factory. So we are using Azure Data Factory as an ETL as well as orchestration tool here. So as I told, there are various ways we can create the resource. So the first option is you can search that resource name or resource, like say for example, if it's a data factory, just search data factory here. You will get that, and you can click that, and from there you can continue the deployment, or you can create from this icon here. On the leftmost you can see there is an icon called create resource. Just click there, and here also you can search the resource. Say for example, in our case I'm just searching data factories. Okay, just search that, and you have to choose the plan. So you have only one plan, data factory. Just create. The next page you have to fill your subscription and other details. In my case I have only one subscription. If you have multiple subscription, choose appropriate subscription, and choose the resource group where you want to keep this data factory. So we already created one resource group, project one. Choose that. All our data factory resources will be kept under this resource group. And the instance details, so this is the name that we are going to give. So my demo project 01. So let's see, this name is available. Yes, this is available. And choose the region. So this is the location that you're going to choose. So I'm choosing the same location that I selected for my ADLS and other resources. So I'm selecting Australia East as my location, and we have two options for versions, version 1 and 2. So choose the recommended version, which is version 2. Then next, git configuration. So you can configure any repository here. So for this demo we are not considering that. Just select this configure git later option. Then coming to the network side, so we can secure it by adding secure network option, but here also we are choosing the default available option. We are not changing anything. So we are using the public endpoint option, so which is the default available. And coming to the advanced option, so we can have the customer managed encryption key. So we are not touching anything here, leaving as default. Tags, as I said, it's an optional one. So you can add certain tags to describe this resource a bit better. So for example, you can add the owner, created by, a purpose, etc. to this tag. So tag is basically a key value pair. So I'm not adding any tag at this time. And finally, the review page. So the review page will do the basic validation, and it ensures everything is okay. And once this validation is passed, we can start the deployment. Okay, so let's create this resource. And this deployment takes some time. So that depends on what are the resources you are going to deploy. But Azure Data Factory also will take some time. So we have to wait here until this is getting completed. So that's it. Deployment is successful. So you can go to this resource from here, like by pressing this go to resource option. So now we are into this Azure Data Factory, ADF. So all the basic configuration you can do, like networking, manage identity, all those configurations we can do from this panel. Otherwise, for creating our data pipeline and adding our ETL job, etc., we will choose this option, Azure Data Factory Studio. So from the overview page, you can see something like that, open Data Factory Studio option, and use this option to create your pipeline and define your ETL job, etc. So this is the page that we are going to use for doing all our work. So this is how the page looks like, and you can see these options on this left hand side, home page and the author. So this is the place where we create the pipeline, etc. I will explain that in the upcoming video. And monitor tab and manage tab. So this is how the Data Factory Studio looks like. I hope the deployment is very clear. And again, if you want to go to that resource, you can just use Data Factories here. Okay, and it will reach you there. Or else you can go to the resource group. So whatever the resource group we created, just select that resource group. This is the Data Factory. You can select that Data Factory and open Data Factory Studio like this also. Hello and welcome back. So far we have deployed ADLS and Azure Data Factory. So the next resource we need for this project is Azure SQL. So we are going to deploy Azure SQL also. So you can choose any of this option for creating the resource. Just create and search Azure SQL here. Okay. Then create. So you have three options: SQL database, managed instance, and SQL virtual machine. So for this project we are using SQL database, and resource type, choose a single database option and then go ahead and create. So here you need to fill certain values. The first is the subscription. Like I said, I have only one subscription here, choosing that. A resource group where you want to place these resources. I'm just going to place it under project 1. This is the resource group which I created. And database name, that I need to choose project 01 or something. So this is the database name which I'm going to use. And database server. So I have not created, or I don't have any database server running. So I need to create a new database. Use this link to create a new database. So database server. So the server name should be unique. Okay, so if I just use my project 01, let's see if it's available. Yeah, this is okay. Choose the same location that we choose for other resources, Australia East. If you are using some location, use the same location for other resources also. And authentication, I'm using SQL authentication. Use the username as SQL admin and the password. Okay. Use the password. Okay, then go ahead and create. So this is my server name, and this is the location where I'm going to deploy the server, and using the SQL authentication, and this is the SQL admin user and password. Make a note of this credential because we will need this credential in future, right? And you can choose, do you want to use SQL Elastic Pool? No, I'm not choosing that. And compute plus storage, so we will configure and use the bare minimal configuration here. And service tier, you can see this will looks like a cost, and I'm just using the basic plan here. Let's see, we have a serverless. Okay, so maximum data. So the plan you can choose, compare the various plan and how much it costs. See, this is very huge, and you can use the basic. So this is okay, the cost is very less. Okay, and maximum data size, again in our case we don't have much data, so choose this option. This is okay for our requirement. And the backup and redundancy, again choose the locally redundant backup and storage because that will be cheaper. Zone redundant and geo redundant will be higher redundancy, that is a higher redundancy option, so we don't need that for this demo. And coming to the network, so we will choose as it is, no connection and connection policy default, everything default you can choose, so later we can configure it. And coming to the security also, choose as it is, the default option. And additional settings, again we are not making any changes here. Tags, as I said, this is just for describing the resource, we are not using any tag for this time. And review, so review will do the basic validation. If anything or any issues, it will display that error message here. So once it's okay, then we can go ahead and create. So now the deployment has completed, so we can check the resource. So click this go to resource option to see the database. Okay, you can see the details like so this is the server name and the other details. And so there is something called a query editor, so you can use this option to connect to your database. But I think you will get an error message stating like so this is not added to this firewall list. And what you have to do is just use this link for adding this IP, whatever the IP we are requesting from, to this server. Okay, use this, and then if you retry, it will connect. So you can see the tables here, whatever the tables available, but nothing is available. But later, once you start working, so we can validate our tables and views from this console. And the other option, what we have to do is like, so we have to make a note of our server name, database name, etc. So we may need that in our upcoming configuration. So if we go back to our resource group, so whatever the resources it's deployed, you can see one is SQL Server and another is database. The project one is our database and this is a SQL Server that we deployed. So you can go to the SQL DB for connecting, querying database and all, but SQL Server, the basic configuration, and you have to do from here. And also if you want to create additional database, you can do from here, like create database. So currently the database is the project 01. So we need this one database. That is more than enough for our testing for this project. Hello and welcome back. Now let's see how to upload our input file to ADLS storage. So this is the resource group and we have created a ADLS storage or storage account. So we'll go to that and try to create a container and upload our input file. So from this console, so you can go to the container from data lake storage. So by default, there is a container $logs created. So we can go ahead and create a new container for us. So use this button to create the container and we will use our name as input. And public access level, make it as private and then create. So this will create a new container for us. So input is a container we have created. So we can place our input file, that is movies CSV file, which is a file that we use for processing, and we can go inside this container and try to upload. There are various ways to interact with this container. You can upload the file to this container by using different tools. Right now we are using browser based approach. So once you are inside this container, you can see this option for uploading. Again, if you want to create one more directory inside this, so we have this option. So I'm just uploading this using this upload option and movies DB. So movies DB is the input file that we are using and which is into the CSV format. Then open and upload. If the file already exists, you can use this option to overwrite if previously or already exists. Then go ahead and upload. So this will not take much time because it's a few KB sized file. The file is uploaded. So you can see that inside our container input, so the file is uploaded. Similarly, you can upload all your input file into this, or whenever you need it, you can upload those files. And now let's quickly look into the input file and how it looks like. So this is the moviesdb.csv file and it contains the columns like movie, which is nothing but movie ID, and movie title. You can see the title here, and generous. So what category it belongs to, comedy, drama, or whatever the generous, and the year, so the when it got released, and the rating, and Rotten Tomato. So these are the fields. Okay, so we are going to process this CSV file using ADF. Okay. Hello and welcome back to this course. And this video we will see how to create linked service in Azure Data Factory. So first let's see our progress. So we already created ADLS, Azure Data Lake Storage, which is used for storing our input data, and Azure Data Factory. so which we are using for transformation and that orchestration or the pipeline creation, and finally Azure SQL, which is used for storing final output. So here our major work we will be doing here in the Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory should know the connectivity details about this ADLS and the connectivity details about this SQL. So for that we create a service called link service. Okay, linked service is nothing but the connectivity information. So we will define that connectivity information. Say for example, from ADF to ADLS connection. So we need to create one link service. Similarly, from ADF to SQL connectivity, so we need another link service. So as a security best practice, we should not hardcode the password in the link service. So whenever possible, we need to use key vault. But to make it less complicated, I'm not using the key vault approach here. So that we will discuss in the upcoming projects. Okay. So here, to make it simple and easy, we are going to create two link service, one for ADLS and one for Azure SQL. So now let's go to the portal and start creating this link service. So this is our portal, and we have created the resource group project 01 and choose our data factory and open Data Factory Studio. So once this is open, on the left hand side you can see some options like home, author, monitor and manage. Go to this manage option and select this link service and choose this option to create new link service. And you have to choose the type of link service. So first I'm using Azure Data Lake Storage. So choose this option, Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Then continue. Then what is the name you need to use? So you can use this name or some other name you can choose. So I'm just using Azure Data Lake Storage LS link service. Some description you can add here. Again, it's not mandatory. And integration runtime. So use auto resolve integration runtime. So this is the only option we have. So we don't have a custom integration runtime created. So we can choose this. Authentication type. So you have a multiple option: account key, service principal, manage identity, etc. Choose this account key option, and account selection from the subscription. Choose the subscription and choose the storage account. Okay, it will use this storage account key for connecting. As I said, the best practice you need to follow by using key vault or manage identity whenever possible. But for this purpose, to make it simple, so we are using the basic configuration settings. And once we added, just use this test connection to ensure we are able to reach the storage account. So the connection is successful and we are good to go ahead with creating this link service. So I'm repeating once again. So first, create new link service, choose some name, add some description, this is optional, and choose integration runtime. So in our case, we have an auto resolve integration runtime alone, and authentication type account, and account selection method from the subscription. Choose the subscription and select the storage account that we created. That's it. And then validate by using this test connection and then create. So that's it. We have created a link service for a data lake storage. Then we need one more link service for connecting to our database. Use this new, then search this SQL. So you can see Azure SQL database. Select this, then choose some name. Again, the description is optional one. Integration runtime. Then we have options like connection string and Azure Key Vault. So the Key Vault is the recommended as per the security best practice. To make it simple, we are using this connection string option, and like previous configuration, here also we are choosing from the subscription, and choose the subscription and select the server name. So my project 01, this is our server name, and database name is project 01. Okay, subscription, SQL server name, database name, and authentication type. So choose the SQL authentication and choose the credential SQL admin and whatever the password. Here also you can use this Azure Key Vault for securely storing your credential, but for this time I'm just hard coding. So as I said earlier, hard coding credential is not a best practice. So always you need to use a managed identity or key vault whenever it's possible. But for this demo, we are hard coding to make it simple. Okay, so connection has failed. Okay, so we will just read more and see. So there is something called firewall. Okay, so you cannot open the server required by the client IP address is not allowed. To enable, use. Okay, so here it's a return like management portal and add this option. So this IP address we need to add in the whitelisted. So basically we have to go and select this database SQL server. Then go to the networking. Okay, so you need to choose the database server, not the database, and then go to the networking. Then add firewall rule. Just start name and end name, same IP address. So some name you can use ADF rule or something, just adding it. Okay, so I just created and add a firewall rule, the rule name and the start IP and end IP, the same IP address, or you can just use allow Azure services and resources to access this server. So that is also fine. In that case, you don't need to use this option. I think this will do. Then save it. Okay, so this is saved. Now if we come back here and do the test again, it's working. Okay, so I haven't added that IP address. What I did is I just added this exception, allow Azure services and resources. The firewall basically restrict the connectivity and it will allow the connection from certain IP address alone. But if you use this exception and enable allow services, Azure services and resources to access, so our ADF also would be able to connect. So only that configuration you need to do. What you have to do is just to go to the resource group, select SQL server, and coming to the networking, then use this tick and then make sure you save this configuration. Okay, then create. So that's it. We have done with these two link service, one for a data lake and another for SQL. Hello and welcome back. In my previous video, I explained how to create link service. So now let's try to create data set for our project. So for that, go to this author page, and you can go to this dataset option. You can see this 3 dot, click your mouse and then create the dataset. So we need to create the dataset for our ADLS data as well as our SQL database. So first search ADLS here, or just use the data lake. You have to choose Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Then continue. And what type of file we are expecting in our input. So it's a delimited text, CSV. Choose the file format. If you are using some other file format, you can choose. It support Avro, ORC, JSON, Excel, Parquet, XML, etc. I'm choosing this CSV now. Then continue. Then some name I have to give. So I'll just use movies input, movies source I can just write, and link service. So this is the link service which I created earlier. So I have to choose the link service for this Azure Data Lake Storage. So choose that, and you can choose the which container or which file you need to use. So I'm just browsing and choosing this input. Till here I'm choosing. So I'm not choosing this file name. So you can see the file path is input, and I'm not adding any values here. That means if any file comes under this container, it will consider. And first row as header. So we have seen our input file, and in our input file, the first row is, we should consider it as a header. That's it. Then OK, and then create. So it's created, and you can do some minimal validation from here, test connection, to ensure so we are able to connect, and we can just do preview data to ensure we are able to read the data. So this is just a preview of our data. So that is fine, and we can create one more data set for our SQL database. Again, repeat the process. New data set, then type SQL, then use Azure SQL database, then continue, and I can just use this option, name movies sync, and link service. Whatever the link service we have created for SQL database, we can choose that. Then whatever the table name we want to give. So if already have the table available, you can choose from this drop down menu. So we don't have any table right now, so we have to choose. So what I'm giving is like a DB or then movies. So this is the table which I am going to create. I mean, the pipeline will create when it run. And you have to use this edit option to write that. This is the schema name and this is the table name. And that's it. Click OK. Okay, so this is saying this name doesn't exist. That is fine. So let's not give anything at this time, and then create. Okay, so I'm not adding any value here. Make it empty, and this. So now here I can modify that. So I can just you can just use this edit option, then they do the same thing, DBO movies. So that's it. We have created our data sets, and in previous video we have created a link service. So we use that link service in our data set. Okay, so the link service we are using in our data set, and data set we will be using in our data flow pipeline. So once this is done, we can save our work by publishing it, and during the publishing it will show if there is any error message. And also you can do this validate all to make sure there is no error. Okay, so the publishing means basically we are saving. just to publish. So if you close this page and reopen, you will get this data set. Otherwise, if you have not published, then this will not be there. So that's it about creating data set. We have seen how to create data set for ADLS as well as SQL database. Hello and welcome back. In our previous videos, I have explained how to create link service, how to create data set. So now we will create data flow for transforming our data and writing it into the final destination. So go to our ADF and then open Azure Data Factory Studio. Then we have to go to the author page to create a new data flow. So once this is loaded, go to this author page and you can see one option, pipeline, data sets and data flows. Go to this data flow and here click and create new data flow. So you have to write some name for this data flow, and this is something like similar to our pipeline. So we have to give some name, and I'm just writing this as movie transform. Okay, so the end description is optional and we can leave it. So the first step, we are going to add a source for this. Okay, just click here for adding the source. Source, I'm just writing as a movie source or movie ADLS, whatever the name will best describe you, and use this dataset option. So we are not choosing any inline option, dataset option, and select the dataset, so which is the movie source. Okay, so movie source is the dataset that we are using here, and remaining we can leave as it is. So you can see all the testing data preview will not work until you enable this debug option. So let's enable the debug option for 1 hour. So here you can see it's using auto resolve integration runtime, and so I'm just choosing the minimal 1 hour. Okay, then once this debug is enabled, then you should be able to do that preview and validation. Okay, so now our debug mode is enabled. Then we can validate by going to this data. Okay, also now you can see our test connection is active, so we can ensure like we are able to connect by using this test connection validation. So test connection ensure like this data flow is able to connect to our input data set. So again, this may take some time, and once this is done, you should get a validation succeed message. So the connection is successful, and now as I said, so we have option to preview our data. So you can just go to the data preview and use this refresh button to get that preview. So you can see our data. So our data looks like this. Okay, so this is just a preview, so we don't have the entire data set available here. Some of the data it's displaying, and if you go to the inspect, where you can see how our column looks like and what is its type, and optimize, we are not we can do the partitioning. I'm not selecting the changing the partition settings, so we can use the current partition, single partition, we can set the partition, etc. The projection also we can change the column type if we need. So that's it about the input. Okay, now let's add the filter. So we have to what we have to do is, so from this data set, so we need to filter the movies between 19 1910. I mean the after 1910 and before 2000. So because we have a lot of data available, but so those fields we need to separate, and also we need to take only the comedy movies. So you can see this genres category, there are a lot of other category also available, so we need to filter it out. For that, just add this plus icon and search for filter. Okay, so we got the filter option, and what we can do is like filter movies, so some name you can give, and incoming is movie source. Okay, so we have only one incoming data source or incoming stream, which is nothing but movie source, our previous step. And we can add some expression here to filter. So what you can use here is use expression builder. I don't know why for some reason it's not loading. Yeah, now it's loaded. Okay, what you have to do is, so we have to add an expression to filter. So first thing is we just need year based filtering. So but year is in the string format, so the numeric comparison will not work with the string. So what you have to do first, change it to integer, then what field we need? Year. Okay, so we don't need the remaining formatting option, that's it. Then which is greater than or equal to 1910, and again to integer, year. So which is less than or equal to 2000, and you can use the r like, then this field, sorry I did 2 times, genres column, then comma comedy. But we will just check this string is correct from our input data. Yeah, this is our input file looks like. So what is the category? So the comedy. So C in uppercase, we will use that, R like, then comedy. Right, and use. So this is the expression that we are using for filtering year greater than 1910 and less than 2010, and R like, genres comedy. Then save and finish. Okay, so or else if you want, you can write it directly even without opening this expression builder tool, and you can just inspect and refresh and get your data, and you can validate like you are getting any other fields other than the comedy movies. So if you look here, you can see somewhere comedy is available, then it's listing that. Okay, so and also the year, it's filtered, so we can ensure like, so this is working fine. And now we will add our next phase, which is aggregate. So we need average rating of comedy movies per year. So for that, again use this plus icon and use an aggregate function. Use this aggregate option, and here you can just use average rating or some name you can give. And what is the incoming stream? Yes, we just need from the filter movies. We have movie source and filter movies, you can see that. So, but we need filter movies as a source for this average rating. Then we need to do a group by. So the since we need to calculate average rating per year, so we can just use this year, and in our output it should display as year itself. So now if you go to the inspect, you can see our column year, and its type group by option you can see. And coming back to the aggregate option, so we just did a group by option, and we can do the average. So go to this option, aggregate, then what is the column name? I am just using average rating or something. Then what expression I need to use. Here also we can use this expression builder tool to write our expression. Yeah, so I think some issue, sometimes this expression builder tool is not getting popped up. So average rating, what is the expression we need to use? So we just need to take the average of rating. Again, this is in the string format. We need to convert it into integer first, because the average will work on a numeric value. So we don't need to format or do anything. So just converting to integer, then we can use avj, average function. Okay, avj function is available. So this is the average, some numeric value it's expecting. So that is the reason we use this to integer function on the rating and finding the average. Save and finish, then back to here. So now if we do the data preview side and preview this data by clicking this refresh button, you can see that year and average rating per year. Okay, so this is every year. So this is the data we are expecting. So every year, what is the average rating? Again, based on your use case and requirement, it will vary, but here I just choose a simple one for demonstration, just a filter, and then doing some aggregate function. So the next phase is we need to save it somewhere, and we can use some sync location. Just again do this add option to write sync. Okay, so sync means I'm writing as movies db something, and the incoming stream is average rating, and so we have a default option dataset where we want to write. So we want to write in the movie sync dataset that we created earlier. So this dataset is writing the data into our SQL DB. Okay, and the remaining thing give it as default, and then we have to validate or run this data flow to ensure it's able to write it the destination. So that's it about the defining the data flow pipeline. So first we have defined our source, then last is our sync. In between we have a filter and a aggregate operation. Hope it is clear. Thank you for watching this video. We will try to run this pipeline in the next video. Thank you. And one more thing, once you have written something, just do publish. That ensure your complete work is saved. Okay, just publish it and before you leave. Hello and welcome back. In our previous videos I have explained how to create a linked service. So you can go to this manage option and see what are the linked service we have created. So one linked service for ADLS and another for SQL database, and also we created a data set So we can back to this author page, and you can see we have created source and sync dataset, and one for ADLS and another for Azure SQL. So we use the link service for this dataset. Then we created data flows for movie transformation. So we created the source as our ADLS and sync as our SQL. In between, so we use the filter and aggregate operation. So filter, we use this year based and generous based filtering, and average or aggregate function, we use this group by for year and aggregate as a average rating, average of integer converted rating field. And finally, it's writing to this destination. So this is the data flow. So in order to run this data flow, we have to create a pipeline. Okay, so let's minimize all these things and go to this my pipeline. So you can see if any pipeline already created, it will list here. So otherwise, again, create a new pipeline. So we have to create a name here. So I'm just writing movie pipeline, or some name. You can give some meaningful name, and it's a description. Again, click here to minimize that. Then you have to choose an activity. The pipeline is basically the set of dependent activity, and it run based on certain trigger. So it can be manually generated or automated or scheduled triggers. I will explain that trigger later, but right now we have to add some activity. So the pipeline contain list of activity. Activity contain the it can be some listed activity from here. We are using data flow as an activity here. So under activities, search for data flow. You can see here, right? Just drag and drop here. So this is the data flow or single activity pipeline we are going to run. Then the name is like so movie transform, some name for this activity we will give. And under the settings, you can choose which data flow you want to run. If you have multiple data flows, it will list here. So you can see here movie transform. So that is the data flow that we created. Okay, so choose that data flow, and the remaining like integration runtime and other thing, choose the default. Okay, and you can choose the like how many core count you need for this integration runtime and all. Choose everything minimal or default. And parameters, we are not using any parameter, that is fine, and we are good for now. And in the general settings, description and remaining things we will leave as it is default. So basically what you have to do is just to create a data flow activity, then under settings choose that data flow name, and then we will publish it and see is there any warnings or error we need to address. So this is going to publish it, and once it's published, we can trigger this job. Okay, so we have two options. One is use this debug mode, or you can just use this add trigger. So add trigger, so we have an option like trigger now. So we are using this to run this pipeline now. So we don't have any parameters to pass, just you leave it default and then okay. So now you can see the pipeline is going to run, and it will take some time, and by that time, so we can go to the monitor page, and we can monitor our pipeline. So just click here, and you can see the status is in progress. Click here, and it will show what activity it's running. So this is our activity, and its activity details you can just get it from here. That is also in progress. Click here to see how this activity is going, and so what is the status, and it's in the queued state. Let's wait for some time and it will take some time to complete. So based on the transformation, it has to do a lot of initialization in the backend. Then the transformation and all will take some time. So finally you will get your result in the database. So by that time, let's go back to our database. Okay, so this is the database, and you can just use this query editor and use the credential. So this is the credential we have given while creating our database. So you have to remember this, and if you go to the table section, now nothing is there. So once this pipeline complete, you will get that table and you can see the data here. So let's wait until this is getting completed. So trigger run, we don't have any trigger run, like a pipeline run. Let's see and wait until this is completed. So you can see, when you click this refresh button, you can see the job is succeeded, and go to this pipeline, and you can see this data flow activity, so which is also completed. So you can get a view like all these status, like so what are the various transformation and how much time it took, etc. So now let's go back to our database and see the table is updated here. So under table section, so you can see this movies, dbo.movies. So I'm just trying to get some around 1,000 lines or 1,000 top 1,000 rows from this table. So I'm just selecting this DBO table, and I can see as it is, like so whatever the values we have generated is written and saved as a table here. So that's it, our pipeline run successfully. Okay, you can do the monitor from here, from the pipeline. You can see the pipeline is successfully completed, and underlying data flow activity also has completed, and you can get the details from this icon. Okay. Hello and welcome back. In our previous video, I have explained how to create the pipeline and run it manually. So now let's clean our previous run data. So we have input available in our data storage, ADLS storage, and output into the database. I'm going to drop this database table, okay, drop table, and deleting. Okay, now if you refresh, so that is not there, and also the input data set, I can just delete it. So now I'm going to create a trigger. So my requirement is, whenever I upload the file or whenever the CSV file reach here into our input directory, the pipeline has to run automatically. So for that, we have an option called trigger. So you can create and attach a trigger from here. So just use this option and new or edit, and choose the trigger. You can use this new option, or else so you can create the trigger separately from this menu also. So I'm using this plus icon to create a new trigger. So I'm writing my name as my input blob trigger. Use some meaningful name and description, which is optional. And what is this trigger type? So it's a scheduled run, or a tumbling window which is periodically running, or a storage event. So in our case, it's a storage event. And choose the storage account detail. So I'm choosing this option. Choose the subscription and storage account. What is the storage account? Where we are expecting our input file. And the container. Okay. So input. So this is the container name. And we have two options for filter. like this is a prefix kind of thing and this is a postfix. So I just need csv.csv ending with the csv file inside this container, and the event is blob created. So you should select at least one. So blob created means whenever a new CSV file, any CSV file which is uploaded into this input container, this trigger will get started. And start trigger, yes, leave it default. Okay, so these are the options you need to check. First is the name of the trigger, then type, storage event, choose the subscription, storage account and container name, and add this filter. So if you are not using this CSV, then whenever any files are written into this input, then it will trigger this. Then continue. And it will try to do that matching with the file, CSV file, but currently we don't have any CSV file into the blob. So that is the reason. Otherwise you can see whatever the matching file here. So that is fine for this time, and let's continue and go ahead and create. So once this is done, so we need to publish this. Okay, just to publish, and this is our trigger name, and publish. So you can see the status, it's getting published, and maybe it take a few moments to get it updated. So once this is published, you can see the triggers here. Okay. So yes, this is published. So what we can do, so we can go to the monitoring tab and go to the trigger run and see is there any trigger is running. It will not run by default. It will run whenever we upload CSV file into our storage container. So if I upload some file, it will not, but if it's a CSV file, it will start. If I do upload this presentation, it will not. But if I okay, let me just upload this presentation file and see whether it's getting triggered. Okay, I have uploaded pptx. This is the file in different format. But now let's see whether this pipeline, the trigger is getting started. No, right? And also the pipeline run. So these are my previous run. Maybe let's filter this status by in progress or queued, or right, it's not showing any trigger. Okay, let me just clean this, and I'm going to upload that CSV file. So this is our movies DB file. Just upload it. Now you can see, just wait. Okay, yeah. So this is the trigger which is succeeded. And also if I go to the pipeline, it's saying like, so this is in progress. Okay, so the pipeline is in progress. That is because of this movie CSV file we uploaded. So it's running by this trigger. Okay, so whenever we upload any CSV file, this pipeline getting triggered. So you can see that trigger detail from this manage console. So okay, so this is the event, and you can disable it by making it into stop state so that it will not check. Also you can delete it from here. Now our pipeline again running. So you can just go to the monitor and see the pipeline status, and which is in progress, and it's running our job. The same data flow job is running. Again, it will also take some time. And finally, you should be able to view your data here. This is the final step. For that, you have to wait here some time to complete this all these transformation steps. Okay, so here what we did is, like, basically we created a trigger, okay, and attached that trigger to our pipeline. So this is the trigger we created, which is a storage event based trigger. So whenever a file is uploaded, so it will or whenever the file is created inside this container, it will trigger that pipeline. So that integration we have done here by using adding the trigger. So you can edit it, you can delete it or disable if you don't want. Hope it is clear. Thank you for watching this video. So we will see in the next video. Bye.